Like the simplest thing here is that the heliocentric model is actually very primitive and retarded. Like that's the actual truth. So it's super primitive, and so they just use mass. It's like such an elementary, simplistic undermining of what's probably actually going on. Like it's probably so much more nuanced with like an abundance of variables, but they just use mass. So like that's the answer. Like for them, it's all the same. It's just like a number, and they can tweak that number until they get the relationship they want. So they literally look at the sky and they think, okay, let's boil this down to one like caveman principle of mass, and then they just throw that everywhere. So it's really going to be looked back on as like embarrassingly inept.
That's hilarious that you think that.
I think it's like, I don't really think that. I think it's just like not even debatable, you know, because for example, Mercury's perihelion shift like shows it. Mercury's perihelion shift shows it. More than one, I'm not trying to talk to you. I'm trying to say something to the room. Mercury's perihelion shift shows it, but not only that, like when we looked deeper into space, quote unquote, right, it showed it abundantly clear that it's not, that this majestic realm with all of these intricate movements and periodicities around us is not as simple as the concept of mass, which by the way has like 12 different interpretations and applications. It's not, because when we looked out, what did we see? We saw like, wait a minute, there's like not anywhere close to the amount of mass we need to see all the stuff we see, all the movement we see. Mass doesn't work. It's like abysmal. It's not even close. Where in their current model right now, 83% of all matter in the universe is dark matter, right? Because it's just not correct. Like the idea that it's just mass is laughably wrong. It's not even, if like an error margin of like 1 or 2% should be unacceptable in terms of cosmology, like specific cosmological claims like this. We're talking about 83% when it comes to mass. And then you combine dark energy, you get to 96%, right? Of the whole universe. So yeah, I'm just pointing out, I mean, and to me, this is such such a death blow point for our side. Like they're limited to proportionate mass, which is why they're running around like just children, like no idea what they're doing. You know, like caveman with the clipboard, like literally. And they're just stuck here. They're just like mass. When in reality, it's a variable that can fluctuate, meaning something like magnetism. Because you can have two magnets that are exactly the same size, exactly the same mass, right? And they can have vastly different strengths. Like their forces can be completely different. One of the magnets can be super weak, one can be super strong, but they can have identical masses. In their position, it's always going to have the same force. But in our position, it's just like, no, they can have the same mass, doesn't matter, right? They can be completely different. Now you can actually explain, you can start to actually describe all these motions. And so to me, it's wild that we're stuck in this paradigm that's so like pigeonholed, and you guys get it. You know, it's because of the Copernican principle.
Shout out to Copernicus. Nah, dude, it's not the problem with anything.
That doesn't mean you chime in every time with this speak, bro. Chill. And not you.
Neutrons.
Oh my God. Let's define stuff in words, please. Please, let's define words, because people use words and they don't understand the meaning. I know this more quad doesn't understand words. Let's talk about words, right? So dark energy, what is it? It's energy that's not visible, that interacts, but you can't measure it, you can't see it, you can't shit. So it's virtual energy. Dark matter, what is it? Matter that you cannot see, that you cannot check, that you cannot find. They can't find it. This is a concept. Those are definitions for concepts, right? So let's not call it the way they call it, and let's call it like it is. Virtual energy, as it exists only virtually in their minds and in their equations, and virtual particles that exist also in their minds and in their equations. And as an added bonus, no one has ever given empirical proof on how massive is anything in this universe. not the sun. There's no empiric proof for the sun. There's no empiric proof for the Earth. There's no empiric proof for the mass of Venus, Jupiter, Mars, or whatever. Those are just assumptions. And based on those assumptions and those distances and the way the geometrical mathematic works in creating the revolutions around the sun, they assume what it is. It's geometry, people. It's just religion and geometry. I'm sorry. Good morning.
Well said. Well said. Yo, is that young Galatrax I see with a hand up? With a post-conversation analysis ready to roll? No way. Real-time logic fallacy analysis? Let's go, dog. Is this baby mind shock? What's good, dog?
I wouldn't say that, but I did take notes for about 2.5 hours. I do think it's a bit unfair if we keep engaging Mordwan's arguments and then telling him that we're tired of hearing his circular reasoning. But if I could have like 3 to 5 minutes uninterrupted and I could tell you guys what I think of that conversation, is that all right? That dialogue for the past 2.5 hours?
Yeah, please do. That's probably what we feel.
Yeah, that's all right. So, first of all, I want to define some terms that I learned from someone named Gregory. I really like this guy's argumenting style. He taught me some words, specifically palter, obfuscate, prevaricate, and stultify. And I'll define these for you guys. To palter is to act insincerely or deceitfully, or to equivocate or prevaricate in action or speech. To prevaricate is to avoid giving a direct answer to a question in order to hide the truth, or to speak or act in an evasive way. And to stultify, and this is the most important one, is to cause someone to lose, your opponent, cause to lose enthusiasm and initiative, especially as a result of a tedious routine. To stultify. And then obfuscate, you guys know what that means. Some of the fallacies that I really didn't like during it, there was like the shoehorning, they're constantly trying to force in the, geocentric, oh, you must mean globe, but you also mean flats, therefore you're wrong, which is known as, and that's a straw man, but it's also a definist fallacy, also known as the persuasive definition fallacy. So like A has definition X is harmful to this argument, therefore A has definition Y. So when you say geocentric, you mean geocentric glob. It doesn't mean that. That's not what he means. He means that, well, I don't need to get into what he means. When Mord says that Austin's geocentric kinematic equivalence position is a geocentric glob position, it's a straw man. Avoiding the issue fallacy, it's when you avoid a question and you miss the point of, you stray off the point, digress, distract. It's similar to the straw man, but it's not like it in the sense that you don't create a related argument, you create an unrelated argument just to divert attention. There's logic chopping, that's the technical tool of logic, where you use logic in an unhelpful and pedantic manner by focusing on trivial details instead of directly addressing the main issue. Again, this comes up in the equivocation, which we're going to get into. For the record, an ad hom is when you make an argument, you make an insult in place of an argument rather than an argument. So when you guys use the term ad hom, you can't just say, that's an ad hom because there's an insult. So if I say, this is my argument, here's the evidence, you idiot, that's not an ad hom. There's an insult at the end of it, that's not an ad hom though. There's circular reasoning. One big thing is questions cannot be straw mans, they can be loaded questions. So, the classic is, when did you stop beating your wife? That's not a straw man. That's a loaded question. There's a difference. And so if someone asks you, is your position this? That's not straw manning their position. That's simply asking if their position is that. It's a difference. Equivocation or doublespeak, that's going to be an important one. I wrote a lot about that. I want to define a straw man. A straw man is substituting a person's actual position or argument with a distorted, exaggerated, or misrepresented version of the position of the argument. And usually people do this to create a weaker version of someone's argument so they can easily knock it down. And then here's the really egregious doublespeak or equivocation that I didn't like. Equivocation or doublespeak, of course, is using an ambiguous term in more than one sense, thus making a misleading argument. So, for example, in this argument, there was the if geocentric and heliocentric have kinematic equivalence via transforms, and geocentric means topographical plane, and fundamental plane means topographical plane, then geocentric kinematic equivalence means topographical plane and fundamental plane and geocentric globe. Therefore, you're wrong. That is the dumbest fucking argument I've ever heard. And that was Bordelon's argument. But that had nothing to do with the point that Austin had, which was when you use the heliocentric model, it's the baseline. You have to grant that there's a kinematic equivalence of the heliocentric and geocentric model, and it took an hour and 45 minutes to grant that base. That is the base of the heliocentric model. That's what it's relative to. So that's that part. And then to end where I started on stultify, to cause or lose enthusiasm and initiative, especially as a result of a tedious routine. The last word that I didn't define was obfuscate, which is to make unclear or hard to understand with irrelevant detail, especially deliberately, which we saw with red herrings and non sequiturs. I'll end the plane there.
Dude, that was awesome. Yo, can you say the words at the beginning again? Because I don't know these words, and I'm so excited. You have like Proveric. Can you say the words? I don't remember them. And can you maybe spell them?
Gregory taught me them. Prevaricate, to avoid giving a direct answer to a question in order to hide the truth, or to speak or act in an evasive way. And of course, this is a form of paltering. Palter. I could just post these in Aether Cosmology for you.
Yeah, that would be awesome, bro. Because I don't know how to spell them, but because
I learned all these
the
words.
distinguishing like characteristics of those are actually very important, right? Because they normally just get all looped in with like deflection or obfuscation, but specifying it is fire, dude. I'm definitely gonna get some word salad accusations in the next debate. But
yeah, if you get a chance, talk to Gregory. When he debated Mordwant, he called him out on all of these. Stultify being the big one, where you're just super tedious and long-winded, and you just waste a ton of time, and you just like it's a war of attrition. It's a tactic.
We call this language, in my language, demagogy. Demagogue. It means when you can, using language, you can waste time, obfuscate, change meaning, change direction of the conversation, replace the subject matter of the conversation. So we have a word that defines all of this circular kind of discussions, and usually is used by politicians.
And to clarify, that's basically stultify is meaning like basically you're taking the wind out of someone's sail with the tedious tactics.
Yeah. So it's like basically any type of fallacy does that, where you're just wasting infinite time, wasting your time, wasting their time, but you're relying that you have more time, or you're conserving energy. And there's a lot of people that do this. I think Omnivore might be one of the more egregious people that does this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Arguing for argument's sake, pretty much.
Yeah, pill pull, splitting of hairs, all that nonsense.
What was the one where it was failure to acknowledge like the basic point so that the conversation gets stymied completely?
Yeah, I got you. That is I don't know what some of these. That is avoiding the issue. I can even send you guys a book on the 300 formal logical fallacies that I've been mulling over.
Yeah, bro, let me know, because I'm literally making a logic course. I'm making a debate course to kind of show people like here's how you can just effectively debate, and obviously familiarization with logic is a big part of it. And I will just say this: a big part of it is what immediately happened with our conversation, where, and I see a lot of flat earthers fall for this trick, and I used to fall for it a lot, and still do at times. And it's not necessarily that you fall for it; you're just like whatever, because you're just actually looking for the truth, and so that proper intention can be abused, but we follow them through these deflections, right? Or they're really like red herrings because they appear to have some type of relevance, but they're primarily intended to obfuscate. And you have to bring them back, because what happens is the audience gets overwhelmed and then they just focus all of their attention on this last point made. So once you engage with it, they get away with the prior, or like what should have been a concession prior, right? And that happens all the freaking time in this conversation, because so many people, it's like a pride thing. Once they make a point, the point is proven wrong. They will never concede, so they would rather just deflect, right? And then they use a red herring. And you have to, just for even the edification of the audience, you have to be like, wait. I'm happy to discuss this, because this is what they then do. They try to gaslight you and make it, and this works so well against flat earthers, because people, they have such a bias against us. They try to make it look like we're scared of the next point. So when you try to bring them back to the point that didn't get wrapped up, they're like, you're running away. They project that you're running away while they're in the process of running away, right? And so like mastering how to not come across as if you are running away or being too aggressive or whatever, but still being able to be assertive enough to bring them back and keep track of it is kind of like an art, that like I'm still trying to master, basically. So just throwing that out there, because it's night and day difference. If you master the ability to bring them back to the point they're obfuscating away from, and you have to be able to train your mind to kind of keep up with the first point and catalog the subsequent points. Dude, it's like you have such an advantage. You're going to just destroy people in these debates if you do that.
You're also just gonna not debate as much though, because you're gonna notice that, oh, this person is only gonna use these tactics. Why would I debate them? I can't wave these tactics away. I mean, listen, the reason why I started looking into this, I saw Gregory, a guy, taught me those 4 girthers of words. He taught me prevaricate, stultify, palter, and I knew obfuscate, but he sort of laid out the groundwork for how you can use it. I saw him and Mordwand arguing about mass, material, matter, and whether or not they're the same and when they're different, and then they're using them interchangeably, where Gregory has concrete definitions for the 3. Mordwand wants his cake and eat it too. He wants to define mass as like 3 different things, matter is 2 different things. And it was 2 hours. They were going to debate relativity. They didn't get past the definition phase. If you can't agree that words like have empirical definitions and meanings, you can't debate whether or not things contain those properties. So if, for example, walking means laying down to you, but to me it means walking. If I say that person is walking and you say, no, they're not, they're laying down, well, look, I mean, like, we're arguing we mean the same thing technically, but we're using different words. So if you can't agree that words have empirical definitions and meanings, you just can't argue. So like, yeah, it makes me not argue with anybody at all the more I look into it.
You know what's so funny about that? Like, you remind me when you're as you're talking about this, using these words, these explicitly, these words, these qualities, these behaviors are the ones most closely associated with all the people that I dislike the most within like this space of this topic, like debating, like flat Earth and all this stuff. Thinking about
Yeah,
like
but
all the
Piezo,
people.
can you name like a prominent globe Earth debater that doesn't use them?
Well, I would say that all of them use them to some extent, but some are way, way, way worse than others, and it's almost like their MO and their identity. Whereas some do it just as like a natural Pugdis response. But the
Yeah, fair
ones
enough.
the ones who do it very intentionally, like constantly, consistently, are the ones that like I just can't stand to interact with.
So I'll throw a piece of advice there. So if you try to empathize with him, for example, with Mordwan, like he enjoys sparring like in terms of debate. So like I think he just enjoys the process, and so like that's the way he's viewing it, is just like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's part of it. So this is what it comes down to, man. If you really want to learn the information, go to Ether Cosmology, go to Flat Earth Fridays, jump on one of my streams, jump on someone that's going to share the information, give you some sources, go back and forth where you're literally learning the information. Okay, the debates are like for the troopers that are going to go in the trenches. They're going to help introduce the idea to the audience. And one of the main ways that happens is they see that the other side is incapable of intellectually honest discussion, and they start to think over time, wait, why is that? Right? Why is that? Because I thought maybe it's just that guy, but then I watched 10 of Witsit's debates and they all do that. And so it's basically just like it's like a sacrifice. You have to persevere through it, knowing, like he said, you're just going to not even want to debate it, because it could be so much more fruitful if it was honest, and it's not. But if the audience hears me say like 20 times that you're skipping over and laying it out, they're like, okay, you're clearly avoiding it and he's correct. Can you please be honest? And they never do. It makes that person want to go look into it in a better environment, right? And then that's where they're going to truly learn it. So it's like two very different things, I think. And it's sad because in a proper intellectual form, debate is the most efficient way to learn things, because you get to hear both sides, and that both sides' points are being engaged with directly and in good faith, and it actually expedites learning. But that rarely happens in this discussion. Like it's
And
basically it doesn't happen.
Also
it
in
wastes less
academia,
time too. Like the reason I started doing this, started like taking notes on these debates, it was actually the first debate I took notes on. I coincidentally was that modern day debate thing that you did against Dave, the English guy. You had a younger guy on your side. It was Nathan. I was taking notes on that. I was like, fuck this, man. Like, this Dave guy sucks. So I stopped taking notes on it, and I did like 10 minutes of notes. But then someone linked me to a debate with Sacred and a guy named Red's Rhetoric. And it was the most disgusting debate. I felt like disgusted with it. So I started taking notes on it. I started writing down a lot of those, like what was said, the logic used, and
God,
just
that was you that took down those notes. Yo, shout out to you, bro.
that was the first debate I took notes on. Yeah, I think Alan asked me for them, and I sent them to you. Yeah, that took a couple hours because you have to go back. You have to listen to what they're saying, interpret it, the logic or tactic they're using. But I started doing this, and I think everyone should do this. If you're debating someone, take notes, right? You start to develop, you notice patterns of how they debate, their tactics. And then in the future, you might just be like, wow, this person just sucks. Like, this person just does not want to debate in good faith. They don't want to have a fruitful discussion. They just want to, like, nitpick or cherry pick. I mean, it's technically a different thing. But it just sucks. So it's like, oh, why debate? I haven't debated anybody in months, and I get hounded all the time. People are like, oh, why are you just focusing on the meta? I'm like, listen, because if we can't even get past the, that man is a man and woman is a woman, basic simple stuff, right? We cannot debate. We cannot debate if you think that up is down and down is up. We can't, because we just think we have a totally different reality bubble. It just makes no sense.
That's how they do it. They use language. That's why I keep returning to language. They obfuscate language. They change meanings of the words constantly. In every field. In every field they do it. And how can you have an honest intellectual debate with someone that believes apples and oranges are the same thing? They will keep hammering the point because that's their core belief, because it's their language, that apples and oranges are the same, because they are the same. They're also a fruit.
What was
People
that
need
word,
to-
like scatter bombing or something, where you just constantly throw out information?
Scattergunning.
That's the one I see him do the most. That's crazy, dude. And a lot of people won't even catch it.
Yeah, that's a cheap trick. That's like, so all the physicists are wrong about gravity, and then, they They've been wrong for 40 years, and also that means that rockets don't work. And it's like you have several points, but it's based on a straw man in the first place. Also, Mordwan's used Mountain Bailey completely wrong. That's not how that fallacy works. That's when someone puts a very weak and not defendable thing in the front, and they retreat back to a much stronger steel thing in the rear. So
Thank you, Bear. I appreciate your feedback.
That was all feedback for you guys.
Thank you.
Yo, Galatrax, you're a legend. Bro. Appreciate you.
Huh?
I was saying to Galatrax, appreciate you, man. You're a legend.
Yeah, it sure is.